back in the Bible days, and I think it is a meditation also. So I'm going to invite you, if you feel comfortable, put your feet flat on the floor, take a deep breath, close your eyes, and I'll read this slowly, and then we'll have a moment of silence, and then I will speak to you about what this means to me. So take a breath, let us move into this quiet space. Let us have this freedom that we just read about. Let us think of soaring into the world as an eagle. On this Flag Day, we have freedom. We have so much to be thankful for. And we read, "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and you anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Alleluia. And let us meditate on that in the silence for one moment. Breathe. As you feel ready, gently open your eyes. Come back to this room, this gathering, this grateful attitude, and join us in saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here this morning, you blessed people, you chosen few. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm just so grateful to be here in your presence and sharing with you a story. I have a couple stories I want to share with you this morning, and some of you know parts of these already and some of you don't, and I've put some of them together in a different way. You can see my title this morning is Stewarding Life, the Caregiver's Way, and I believe, coming to unity and having this belief system that we are here as humans, as divine sparks of God, to steward life. And stewarding to me means that we nurture, we cultivate that divine presence everywhere that we go. It doesn't take a lot of trying to do that. We just are. We be good. And wherever we are, God is. And we say that every single morning. And so, in any facet of our life, we can be stewarding life. But this morning I want to talk about caregiving in particular. And I know that we have caregiving of youngers, and we also have caregiving of olders in our life, elders. And so I've been involved with some elders recently, and I want to focus on that rather than the younger generation. My name is Susan Joy Holliday. I was totally blessed with getting that name. It takes me to many places that my original name was Grunwald, which doesn't take me too far. I'm mostly stumbling. So my first husband was named Holliday, and I kept that name after he made his transition, actually. And so I have some experience with caregiving from various angles, and I want to tell you about that, and I want to tell you about this next phase of my life that I'm transitioning into. And this today is one of those steps getting towards that next transition. So my experience, how do I get to talk about this up here? My experience is that for a whole decade of the 1990s, I was in Washington, D.C., and working as a transition assistance counselor, helping military folks speak civilian again and figure out what job they wanted after they left the military. I also went into the private sector there and helped folks transition from one career to another as they made that decision. And it never occurred to me until I got to Unity that we use the word transition as moving on past our life here in this universe. We move on, we transition to the next life after this. So it's a similar process, really, when you think about it. Transitioning from one lifestyle of this kind of work, this career, to another lifestyle is sort of like going to heaven or wherever we're going next. Then towards the end of the 90s, you never know. I love you too. I love that we can laugh in this church, you know, just be authentic. Thank you, God. And then at the end of the 90s through 2002, my parents had their final illnesses and they were down in Florida. I was in DC, and so I learned how to be a long-distance caregiver and help them to transition peacefully to their next land, wherever that was that they went. The pieces that next fell into place were that I came down here to visit my friend Reverend Carol, who's not here today. She's visiting with her family down in Florida. And I just fell in love with this church and with Huntsville and the people that I met here. I've never seen so many people who speak the same way that I do and laugh at my funny, silly jokes and things like that. So I said, I'm going to move here. I love this place. So 2007, I moved here, joined the church right away. And in 2008, I was working 3 different part-time jobs in town here. One of them put me into the presence of 9 to 12 different churches, different belief systems, different people from different countries. It was just one of those multicultural kind of centers where we had all kinds of people coming together with respect, loving each other, having a great time, understanding each other, yet still maintaining their own focus, their own belief. And so, bam, July 11th, I was all set to go on a retreat with my friends from Unity Church on Friday afternoon, but I just had to stop at the doctor's office to get my blood test results back. And he said, well, got something to tell you. That's never good news. And so he said, you have acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and you need to start treatment right away. I said, okay, I'll be back on Monday. I'm going on this retreat up in the hills, the mountains in Tennessee, and, you know, Friday night through Sunday night, and I'll be back. He said, you don't understand. I'm not sure you'll make it through the weekend if you don't start treatment right now. Your white blood cells are off the chart. We can't even measure them. And I want you to start treatment right now. I said, I can't. I'll lose all my jobs. I don't have enough insurance. I don't have enough savings. I just moved here less than a year ago. I don't know anybody except Carol, really. I mean, you know, she was my one big friend. So he said, well, you're a human being. You're here in front of me. You're my patient. And we're going to treat you, and we're going to get you well, and we're going to worry about the money later. That's the least important thing. I just, at that moment, said, I think God brought me here just to find this doctor. I could have had leukemia anywhere, but I found this doctor, and he took care of me. His team was so fabulous. I was immediately, within 2 hours, getting chemo in my arm, you know, and wondering what the heck happened to me. There I was, curled up in the hospital bed under the sheet going, what happened? And what came to my mind was this 23rd Psalm that I just read. Yea, though I walk through the valley of death, I will fear no evil, because thou art with me. Think about those words. God is with me, right here next to me, sitting in that little chair next to my hospital bed and watching over these chemicals dripping into me and my hair falling out and all the other things that were happening. And how comforting, how wonderful to think about that. You know what those other words mean? He makes me to lie down in green pastures. You know, it's not on the top of the Rocky Mountains and you might slip down and it's icy and cold. It's green pastures. How beautiful is that picture in your mind? Nice green meadow, you know, temperature's just right, there's no bugs, there's no little, you know, the shepherd has the lambs taken care of over there and I could just be out here in the shadow. And the still waters. There's no tsunami mentioned here, there's no tornado. This is nice still waters, okay? So there were some treatments I got in that hospital that are just worse than torture. I just can't even describe them to anybody anymore. But I would bring that up again. I'm in the valley of the death, but this evil's not going to get me. I'm going to get out of here. And the doctor was so impressed with my attitude that we're going to beat this, we're going to treat it, we're going to do the best we can. Lo and behold, all these people that I mentioned before, the multicultural people, and all these other faiths, I had Seventh-day Adventists and Baptists and Unity ministers, and we had, who were the people that worship the trees and the Wiccans, and, you know, just anybody and everybody. The nurses would say, well, who was that coming in here praying with you? You know, it's like, bring them on, bring them all on, they're all God's children, you know. People came in and did energy work. It was fabulous. So I wanted to give you the gift of this 23rd Psalm and think about the words that are in it as a comfort. Whatever burden you have right now, whatever difficulty you're going through, whether it's caregiving or it's financial or it's something else, think about those words. God is with me right here. He prepares a table before me, overflowing. My cup overflows. Get a bigger cup, right?
Yeah.
He's giving you so much stuff. Get a bigger cup. Let me have it in the purse or, you know, wherever it fits. These words are inspired, so I carry them with me. They've gotten me through many a tough day. What happened after that? I got better. I'm here. Yay! Yay, God! And I truly do. I kept hearing in my mind, I have a purpose. I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to stay here. This was a huge, huge, huge wake-up call. But I know that I have a message to give. And what I want to give you this morning is part inspiration and part practical tips as well. Caregiving, I'm telling you, is the next biggest trend in employment. In one form or another, right? There's going to be nursing homes, there's going to be leisure homes, there's going to be my own home. I mean, everybody's going to be taking care of somebody because all of us born between 46 and 64, we're all turned in what? Older. And there's a whole lot of us doing it all at the same time. So be nice to your children who are going to have to take care of you. One big practical tip I have is talk with your family. Tell them what you would like. Because I had no idea when I got into the hospital. I'm in there for 20 minutes and this little guy comes popping in. I mean, he's got scrubs on like he works there and an ID badge and everything, but he was like Tigger from the Winnie the Pooh cartoons. Remember Tigger? You know, he comes in, well, hi, how you doing? Do you have a pick line or do you have a port? I was like, I'd like a different port if this is the one I pulled into. What are you talking about, buddy? Well, a port, of course, is some big tube that they put into your chest. They insert this big tube into your chest so they can pour liquids in and they can take stuff out. Makes it easier on them. They don't have to keep finding a vein.
Or poking you.
Or poking you every time. So I had a PICC line, which is another smaller tube they put in your arm. It threads all the way up to your heart. Lovely. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I didn't have anything to say. What if I go unconscious? Are they supposed to give me the paddles and wake me up again? Are they supposed to let me just go? Do I want a feeding tube in case I can't talk? I had never even really thought that. I'm a baby boomer. We're going to live forever, right? we're having fun and changing the world, right? So have that conversation with your family. It's a tough conversation. Ask your granny, ask your grandpa, your mother, your father, what do you want to have happen? How do you want to be kept alive? How long do you want that to go on? What are the financial situations? What's the code word I should know when it's time for me to be your caregiver? My dad, for instance, had a code phrase. He said, if I ever say this from the emergency room or the hospital, I don't want to have those paddles. I don't want to be shocked back awake. I don't want to have a feeding tube. I don't want to linger on in a vegetative state. So I got that call one night up in Washington, and he was in Florida. He was in the emergency room. Something had happened to him, and he gave me that code word. He said, I don't want to have any more operations. I don't want to have any more, dragging this on. I've had enough. I feel worn out. It's time to stop. So I talked to the doctor, and I said, he gave me the code word, and I hate to say it, I'm not done with him, but he seems to be telling me he's done with this world. It was painful for him, and it was a long, long time that he fought another blood cancer called lymphoma. So I had to agree with him. I had to become his advocate, which is really weird when you think about it. Your parents are there, and you just expect them to always be there, that you can depend on them and go see them. And here he is, helpless in the hospital, right? So think about these phases of caregiving, and how could you fit into this management system that we're going to have for managing all these folks in the world? Now, I said that we have the obligation, the feeling, the suggestion that we should be taking care of other people. We are meant to steward life. How do we do that? Where do we get this from? This morning we had 2 Corinthians from the Bible, which told us something about freedom, and the Lord is helping me to fly like an eagle. So I looked up in the Bible, what are some of the phrases that they give us, the lessons that they give us to tell us we should be a caregiver for somebody. Does anybody know the story of Ruth? Yeah? Can you give me a recap just in 3 sentences? No, okay? The whole book of Ruth is about this young woman, apparently she's young, and she marries a guy, the son of Naomi. And Naomi was married to Elimelech. Now those two, Elimelech, and Naomi had come from Israel, but now here they found themselves in Moab because there was a famine over in Israel. Well, doggone it, for some reason, we don't really know why, Elimelech and the 2 sons could make their transition to the next world. So here's these 3 women, Naomi and her daughter-in-law Ruth, and another daughter-in-law whose name escapes me. I'm not sure if we even read about that, but anyway, Naomi says, I can't see myself surviving here. How am I going to live? I don't have a man to bring us food or shelter, take care of us, guard us. I want to go back to my extended family in Israel. You 2 daughters-in-law, you can go back to your own mothers, and they'll take care of you. Well, the one does, but Ruth says, wait a minute. Please don't ask me to do that. I want to stay with you. I love you. And I'm your family. In honor of my husband, my dead husband, my late husband, I want to go with you back to Israel. So she does. And she says that famous line, whither thou goest, I will go. Where you go, I will follow. And it's a love story between these 2 women, that she has loved this woman, Naomi, as her mother, and she's going to take care of her. So they get back there, and they get on the farm, and Ruth goes out, and she doesn't have a job or a position, so she goes into the fields after the harvest and picks up what's left. There's always something left, a little bit of wheat, a little potatoes, olives, whatever they're harvesting there in Israel at the time. And it's an accepted tradition, but the owner of the land turns out to be part of Naomi's extended family. And he looks at Ruth and he said, man, that is just amazing. You came here to be with her, and you're taking care of her. You're out here gleaning out of the fields what's left. That is amazing. I'm real proud of you. Take whatever you want, even from the harvest. Just take as much as you need to take care of your mother-in-law. So she's rewarded right away. And eventually she falls in love. They fall in love and they get married. And when you look at the end, the final verses of Ruth says that her descendants are Jesse and then David. And then who came from the house of David? Jesus was born from the house of David. So she became an ancestor of Jesus. If she hadn't gone with her mother-in-law back there, she wouldn't have been part of that, and we might have had a different Jesus. I don't know. I think he would have come through no matter what. Don't you think? I think God would have arranged that. In Exodus 20, it tells us, honor thy mother and thy father. And to me, that means respect them, take care of them, be there for them, answer for them, whatever they need, so that they took care of you when you were the youngers, and now you're taking care of them when they are the elders. That's the fifth commandment. That Charlton Heston, wasn't it, went up on the mountain?
Yes.
As Moses, and he came down with the big tablets. So that was the fifth commandment. The second one says what? Love thy neighbor as thyself. And so we get the first two, which is I am your God, love your God as no other, and there are no other gods, I am God. And the second one is love thy neighbor as yourself. And I want to challenge you this morning to also remember to turn this around. Love yourself as you love your neighbor, because I'm one of those people. As a caregiver, I give everything to the other person. I just put too much into it. So do as I say, not as I do this morning, okay? So love yourself as you love that neighbor. Now, if you're making for them lovely, beautiful meals, this person that you're taking care of, make yourself some beautiful meals as well. Take some time to go outside. Sit and think about the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. My shepherd is somebody who takes care of the flock, of the sheep. And thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The rod is used to keep the sheep in the right path as they're going along, so that you don't get lost, you don't stray away. And the staff is that thing with the hook on the top. And that's what they use. Sometimes they have to hook a leg or a neck of one of the little lambs that's fallen off the path, and they hook them back. So again, they're caretaking. It sounds like discipline and love, and that's what it's meant to be as an example in that story. So we've got two commandments: love thy neighbor as yourself, honor thy mother and thy father, the story of Ruth. And when Jesus was on the cross, at one point he looked down, he saw his mother was there, and his disciple, his beloved disciple, not a family member. And he said, "Mother, behold thy son, and son, behold thy mother." So he asked his disciple to take care of his mother. He made sure that was taken care of while he's on the cross. Goodness, if that's not an example or a lesson for us to take care of our elders, I just can't go any further. What practical tips do I have for you this morning? So we got an idea of why. We have lessons from the Bible. We have examples from our own family, from the community. We've seen other people taking care of elders. We see it in the media, and we hear it from AARP all the time. You know. So here I am. The last two things that have happened in my life, I told you about being sick and getting well. And as I was recovering from that, one of the people that I had met along the way in my illness said, would I like to go and sit with an elder in her home, because she was having some physical and emotional, mental type problems. And really her family didn't think she was going to recover from that. So all I had to do was sit in her house and be there with her, so that she didn't run out in her nightgown or do something else that was potentially hurtful. And we got to be friends. And at one point, she was so darn depressed, dark depressed, that she couldn't get out of her bed. Literally, just could not get the motivation to get up out of her bed. And that went on for several weeks, and I said to her, look, you know, if I lived through that stuff they put me through in the hospital, you can live through this. I'm here with you. I know how to do it. Let's make a plan. If God wanted you to stay in this bed and die, he wouldn't have sent me, because I'm really bored sitting here watching you. Okay? We got to do something. At least let's read a book, you know? I mean, golly. So she said, yeah, I don't have to stay here. So gradually, little by little, she was terrified of the shower. I don't know. It's part of depression, that everything is just really frightening. So I said, I'll be there with you. I'll hold you. You know, just do the darndest things when you're a caregiver. You have to watch out for taking care of yourself as well as taking care of that other person. So in that case, what happened was, one of the tips that I'm going to talk about just briefly is that you want to determine, what is my purpose here? Who's the person that's receiving my care? And how can I help them in the best way? How can I find out what they really need? If she had just stayed there and, you know, kept withering away, then I'd need to change my way of approaching her and talking with her. But this was what she needed, apparently, was a little bit of a challenge. Let's see you get out. Let's see if you can do it. Let's find out what we have together. So find out what your purpose is. Who is this person that you're going to take care of? And do they really need that much care? I moved to Florida at one point in the 80s, and I thought, I'll take care of my parents. They're getting old now. Well, heck, they were out, you know, still playing cards, helping other people move. They were going to the grocery store. They were just fine. And I was the one who hated it there because I wasn't old enough yet. It was ghastly, you know. Heaven's waiting room, all these people are so old. There's a bank on every corner. They brought all their money down, but I couldn't figure out how to get it out of there. So what is it that they need? Who is the person that I'm taking care of, and what is it that they need? If I went there and I really was trying to take care of them and drive them around, they would have just kicked me out and said, leave us alone, we're fine, and we're better than you are, actually. Which is probably true, because they were tough Germans from Wisconsin, you know. And then I like to think of the second thing, so that's your purpose, who's the recipient. The second thing is the practice of caregiving. How will I be as excellent as I can as a caregiver? What are the systems I need to set up in order to be the best that I can be? So one of the things I did with my parents long distance was I looked up and I found people in their local area who could be of help to them, cut the grass, give them rides, take them to the doctor, a social worker, another kind of healer, you know, somebody to bring food to them, things like that. So I didn't have to be there 24/7 with them. I got some help from other people. That was the system, and I kept track of it. I took charge of some of their bills because they were having trouble remembering to pay them. And I didn't pay them, but I also got charge of their checking account, which was another whole long story. So that's part of the relationship you have with them and the infrastructure that you set up in order to take care of this project. Sometimes people find it easier to be a caregiver for elders if you look at it as a project, okay? The family that I'm working with now, this is the second family that I've helped here in Huntsville. The mother has turned 100 years old in December, and there's more and more of us living that long. So you got a lot of years to go yet, honey. And think about it, what are you going to be doing all those years? Well, she was doing fine until we had her big birthday party in December. We had about 50 people that came through, relatives and friends and acquaintances, and big cake with sparklers on it. It was just amazing. And then in January, bless her little heart, she just went to bed and hasn't been up out of the bed since then, and she's just been slowly declining. I think she was just holding on until she could celebrate that 100 number. And I would say right now we're within weeks of her making her transition. She's just really having a tough time right now and sort of miserable. So the thing that I do, she can't hear any longer, which is really frustrating because she loved to communicate and write notes to people and read a book. I was reading books to her for hours and hours. And now that's much more difficult, and she's having trouble seeing as well. So I just say the Lord's Prayer, I say the 23rd Psalm, I say our prayer for protection, anything I can think of, just to get that energy in the room. Even if she can't hear me and acknowledge it, it's in the room, and it helps my heart to stay in the process. And so I never want to turn it into a task that I get paid to sit here and I'm just going to sit here. Because there are some caregivers like that, you know. I just sit here and I play with my phone, or I read a book to myself. And she still needs some stimulation, she still needs physical care and maintenance and exercise, because her joints are clenching up now. And so she still needs to be exercised and massaged a little bit. And when you're doing it with love from your heart, because you honor this person, because you respect them for living so long. She was one of the first people to have a store down on the square in Huntsville. She's a remarkable woman, and I miss hearing her stories now. But I have to work with her daughters. Both of her daughters live in the house. One is 75 and the other one's 66 or something like that. Each with their own physical problems and emotional problems, and there's the whole family dynamic thing that goes on. that I just say, oh goodness, okay, I'm just gonna go over here and, inventory the supplies for a while. And then it cools down again, and then the brother lives right across the street with his family. Oh my goodness. Anyway, family dynamics are really, really interesting. How do they get along with each other or not? And so that's the second thing, is figuring out how is this my practice of caregiving? How am I stewarding life on the planet by helping this one person? I do believe that every person we help lifts up the whole of humanity. So just do it and enjoy it. And the third thing is my passion. What do I have to offer? What do I want to get out of this? I don't want just a paycheck. I don't want just thank you, which they do. They frequently say thank you. They recognize what I'm giving and what I'm offering. But I also want to feel that I can treasure this time. I am offering something to help another person that nobody else could do. I'm unique, and she's unique. And I became best friends with a 100-year-old woman. Can you imagine? She's from a whole different century. That I never knew all those things about her childhood. And about listening to the radio during World War II, Franklin Roosevelt talking on the radio, and Churchill, and she lived through that. And the depression of having to spread a potato out between three people, and that's all they had for dinner a few nights. So what is my passion? Mine is learning about history, learning about this person. What can I do to help the world by helping this one person? I do believe that those three things, figuring out your purpose, putting together your personal practice of caregiving, and the passion that I bring to it. What is it that I want? What are my strengths that I'm bringing to this? That love is at the heart of it. This is what we're meant to do. We are humans. We exist with the divine spark within us. And I wish you well. Namaste, my friends. Thank you.